Keep on riding with us as we continue to broadcast the balance and defend the discourse from the Hip Hop Weekly studios. Welcome back to Civic Cipher. I am your host, Ramses Ja. Big shout out to my brother from another mother, Q Ward, who will be back with us next week. He has assured me and all of us that he will be back. But in the meantime, we are in the company of the lovely, the great Amy Owen, aka Pineapple Lawyer. For those that don't know, she's a civil rights attorney. She has worked major civil rights cases alongside Ben Crump. She's known for working alongside professional athletes and celebrities and other high-profile individuals. And again, you can find her online at Pineapple Lawyer on all platforms. I got that right?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. That's where you want to go if you want to get some more game that you got in the first part of the show, or some of this game that you're about to get right now. So we're going to be talking about some anti-white discrimination and how that happens to be a thing now. So stick around for that and so much more. But before we get there, it's time to BA, become a better ally, Baba. And today's Baba, we are shouting out Julo Shop. Julo.shop. I want you to remember that, Julo.shop. 100% black woman owned. They offer over 450 unique products from more than 75 black owned brands, from pantry to beauty, home care, kids, gifts, and more. At Julo, they're more than just a platform, they're a movement towards change. And they're inviting everyone to join them. To Julo Shop, it's more than a store, it's a celebration. It's the giving and receiving of amazing. Julo means more than, and that's what they promise. This is not just another retail shop. It's an opportunity to try something new, to discover or rediscover your new favorite products from truly amazing black-owned brands. Their product partners are dynamic, passionate, but most importantly, they are people like you. Their goal is to make these brands household names, the names you crave, the names you demand, the names you love. Their promise to you is to always keep searching for the new, the awesome, the amazing brands. They will always provide quality, convenience, and selection. So go ahead, discover, experience, enjoy. Again, www.julo.shop. That's JULO.shop, not .com, .shop. Okay. Now, I want to talk to these people on this show. I think that this is fantastic. As I mentioned, I am exceptionally petty and I hold grudges quite well. This means that I'm not shopping on Amazon anymore. You know, this means that I'm not shopping at Walmart. This means that I'm not, there's a lot of people that's not getting this money. Target, I see you. I saw that black square on Instagram. Where you at now? Right?
Wow.
That's Amazon, how I feel about
that's a hard one.
Yeah, but they can get it too. Anybody can get it. I go to eBay. It's not a problem.
Getting my stuff
but
the same day or the next day.
But I tell you what, but it's worth it for me. And now, guess where I go? Julo.shop. Check them out. All right.
Love it. Let's go, Julo.
So, I just kind of want to get your thoughts on a couple of stories. Yeah, just talk to me.
All right.
I'm going to share a bit from NPR.org. A federal system. A federal system for doing background checks on law enforcement officers has gone offline, thanks to an executive order signed by President Trump when he returned to the White House on January 20th. The National Law Enforcement Accountability Database was launched in 2023 as a central repository of the professional records of federal law enforcement officers. The main purpose was to allow prospective employers, other federal agencies, or local police to check their backgrounds for misconduct. The system is now offline. Why did President Trump decommission the database? It appears to be a casualty of Trump's flurry of first-day executive actions, which included the revocation of a long list of President Biden's executive orders. One of those Biden orders was a package of police reforms signed on May 25th, 2022. The second anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. The database was just one item among many in Biden's order, and the Trump administration has not criticized it specifically, though in the preface to the revocation, it criticized the Biden policies in general over what it called unlawful and radical DEI ideology. So, I want to make sure that I mention this. States individually can still keep databases, but what are your thoughts on that? And I guess, what do people do if they encounter police misconduct now? Maybe you don't have the answer for that, but that feels like a tremendous loss, especially since, those of us that have been kind of fighting this fight since 2020, where police accountability was really all we were asking, but the main thing we were asking for, I should say. What are your thoughts on this? And, maybe a couple of words for people that are concerned about that.
Sure. It feels like we're taking steps back, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like big, giant steps back. The George Floyd case was a big deal. And so to have the federal records completely offline now, and how do you hold those police forces accountable at this point? I already feel like there's so much that happens in these cases that families aren't given, the unredacted video tapes. I have clients and families who reach out to me all the time and they say, this happened to my family member and we've been asking for the videotape for 2 years. Why aren't they releasing it to us? Why can't they give it to us? And so in a system that's already broken, to have even more roadblocks put up is very scary. And I think you just have to continue to be persistent. You have to keep asking. We have rights that are undeniable rights in this country, and one of those is to make public records requests to these organizations, and they do have to eventually give those videotapes and those records to people who have loved ones who are involved. I don't have the answers. I think the main thing would be to continue to fight. I mean, it's not a new fight, right?
Yeah.
And I think that having an administration that feels like they can do this and nobody's going to say anything is also a big deal. So I think people like you who are saying something about it, who are shining the bright light on it, are so important.
Yeah.
So your work is actually going to hopefully help revert that or fight it somehow.
Well, listen, I appreciate you saying that, but the truth of the matter is that right now it's lawyers that are kind of holding up what's left of democracy. All the levers of government are in the hands of Republicans, and this is a further right government than I've ever seen in my lifetime. This is, I don't even consider him to be a decent person, like a decent human being. Even this very thing that we're talking about right now, you can look at, as near as makes no difference, 40 million people in unison, more or less, about their grievances at the hands of the police. 40 million United States citizens. More than that, but, let's just, for the sake of round numbers. This is not just a black issue. This is a police issue. And there's often been this narrative that it's just a few bad apples. Just a few bad apples, right? And that's been the narrative that they've used to push back against the progressive policies that we've wanted to see implemented with respect to police. Listen, we don't have to have wide-scale police reform. It's just a few bad apples. Once we weed them out, everything will be fine. You guys calm down, right? So this has been their approach. But this maneuver by Donald Trump to wipe out the database that accounts for the transgressions of those bad apples, it's almost like the presumption is that all police are perfect. They are above accountability, and all 40 million of those black people are just imagining it, or they are not even worth hearing. And that's the part that feels like like when I said I don't even feel like this is a decent person. That's where that comes from. And again, where we are right now, and I appreciate you saying so, because there are many people who have said, hey, a show like this is more important than ever. Especially now on the other side of that election, this is going to get really bad, and it's going to stay bad for a long time, and we need somebody to keep talking. Hey, look, I got you. I'm not giving up. I am not there's no quit in me. My heart doesn't know how big my body is. You know what I'm saying? And I run it. I was born I'm from Compton, right? So, it doesn't matter. I've had such a fantastic life that if I round the next corner and that's it for me, somebody's waiting on me, so be it, right? But this fight is taking place in the courtrooms. These fights are taking place in courts around the country, and your work with Benjamin Crump, is more important than ever. And so I guess, just sharing these stories is something that kind of helps the public know kind of what's going on. But, if something occurs to you, of course, reach out to us at Civic Cipher. You can reach out to Pineapple Lawyer as well, and let's talk about it. I want to share another story too here. This one's from the Washington Post. Marlene Ames was distraught in 2019 when she was bumped from an administrator position at the state agency overseeing youth corrections and replaced by a gay man who she says was less qualified. Ames was demoted and her pay was cut more than $40,000. A few months later, she lost a management job she had applied for to a woman who had not sought the position initially. According to a lawsuit Ames would soon file. That woman, too, was gay. Ames's job discrimination lawsuit makes an unusual claim that could upend how many of the nation's courts have handled such cases for decades. The department, she says, was biased against straight people like her. Straight discrimination, this is what she's alleging. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments in Ames's bid to revive her case, which was stymied in the lower courts because of past rulings that set a higher legal bar for men, straight people, and whites to prove bias in the workplace than for groups that have historically faced discrimination. That higher standard is unconstitutional, her suit says. The case is being closely watched by corporations and employment lawyers, many of whom expect the high court's conservative supermajority to side with Ames, now 60, and make it easier for members of majority groups to sue. So here we are now on the other side of the first Trump presidency, where the Supreme Court was decidedly conservative. Democrats didn't stack the courts. Democrats didn't do any of the things that, I'm sure Republicans would have gladly done, because we've seen that there is no, when they make radical changes to how we fundamentally live our lives in this country, they call it fighting for America, right? But the reason that Democrats don't do it is because historically it's never been done, right? But the long and the short of it is that Joe Biden had 4 years with a decidedly conservative Supreme Court. Now Donald Trump is back in office, and as it turns out, there are people suing because they feel they're being discriminated against because they're straight. There are people suing because they feel they've been discriminated against because they're white. And this is a mischaracterization and, in some instances, a bastardization of what these laws, the premise of these laws. Now, this is just my thoughts here. You're an actual lawyer, and these things have to hit closer to home for you. What are your thoughts hearing stories like these? Well,
constitutional law was one of my favorite classes in law school. And constitutional law is where you learn about all of the tests for large cases like the type that you're describing about disparate treatment. So there are tests that every court is supposed to apply when someone says, hey, I was discriminated against or I was treated differently. And it would be fact-based, which tests they apply. But hopefully our court systems are not so broken, and that every single judge is not in the pocket of our administration, and that they apply the correct tests to every situation and figure out, was this person treated fairly, regardless of, I guess, if she was straight or if she was gay or something like that. And that's a unique, that's a unique case. I haven't had any clients that had that exact circumstance, right? But those constitutional law tests and things that have been around for, decades and decades should come into play. It's what's scary about it is that a lot of these judges have been appointed by the current administration. So by Donald Trump. And so whether or not they apply the law as it should be applied is yet to be seen. I think I've seen a couple things come across that I'm like, oh my gosh, even from our Supreme Court, right? And you think, why are intelligent people who obviously went to law school and went to the same constitutional law classes that I went to, why are they applying the law so differently? And it's because every single mind works in a different way. So you can almost go down that gray path and figure out a way to say, okay, this is why I'm going to side with the conservatives. This is why I think that, you know, the left wing is correct in this case. And it's so gray. The law is so gray that there are ways to find good and bad in both sides, right? Nothing is ever just black and white. That's where lawyers live. We live in the gray, right? But I'm just hopeful that these principles that we know to be, you know, solidified in both case law, in history, in constitutional law, that they are applied across the board. But you never know. I think this woman who is making this claim, I don't know what the circumstances are. I would have to read her case and see what the facts are before I could make an educated comment on it. Yeah. But it does worry me that groups that have not been marginalized and don't have the power. So racism, obviously, it's a power thing, right? Like groups that don't have the power, we're going to be more subject to racism and discrimination and things like that. So for the majority to think that they're now being discriminated against or emboldening them to feel like, oh, I can sue too, is a slippery slope. Yeah. And I'm not excited about that at all. And I think that it's dangerous. And I hope that the court systems can at least, you know, make some of the decisions on the right side.
Yeah, we need some standardization here. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Sure.
And I think that you make a good point, because if let's say that this woman, what's her name? Marlene Ames. Let's say Marlene Ames's name is Ramses, right? So this is me, and this actually happened to me. Okay. I would have a tough time arguing that two instances, one where I was demoted and someone who was less qualified replaced me, and a second where someone who didn't seek a job was hired in front of me, I would have a tough time proving to any court that that was based on racism, right? If it was two white men, two white women, two whatever, I'd have the toughest time trying to argue that in court. This is flat overt racism because I got demoted this one time, and then this other time someone got hired that wasn't even seeking the job. Okay. But she, again, now with a conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court, has a fighting chance, as illustrated by the fact that everybody's waiting. This is kind of what people are anticipating, that this is going to fundamentally change how that looks. And it's so crazy, because where I would have a tough time even bringing that to a lawyer and just to even like
doesn't pass the laugh test.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I get laughed out of the office for that. Like, dog, that's called being black, dog. Welcome to the club, right? That's all I would hear. But for her, it's going to the Supreme Court, and it'll fundamentally. And if that's not the epitome of white privilege,
I was just going to say that.
I don't know what is. How about that, right?
Well, look what's going on in the country.
Yeah,
it's a reflection of that, in my view, and it's a scary, scary time. Sure.
Well, we got one more. I don't know that we'll have enough time to really pontificate, but I did want to share it. These are some words from Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, who was a recent guest on the show here. He says, Trump's FBI plans to go after anti-racist black leaders and organizations. If history is any guide, Trump's FBI will exacerbate small rivalries and spread false allegations against organizations and leaders to undermine their reputations and support and/or to justify jailing or silencing key leaders. The pervasiveness of anti-blackness among people of all races eases this job of Trump's FBI and those unwittingly aiding the state due to petty ideological or personal differences. Now, he said this in response to an article entitled "Trump's FBI Poised to Focus Counter-Terror Strategies on Things like BLM and Antifa," and that's, I believe, a Vanity Fair article that he was responding to. In other words, the FBI is now going to be turning its sights onto black organizations and treating black organizations the same way that you would treat like what's the one, ISIS, or the Ku Klux Klan or whatever.
Proud Boys.
Yeah, I don't even think that they're really focused on Proud Boys and Ku Klux Klan. I think that, again, there's a fundamental shift in how, because again, Project 2025, all these people are appointees. All these people are, people that were competent at the job. Now they've fired and been replaced by people who were loyalists, right? And so this very well could be the way that this department goes. And so it compromises our capacity to fight back. Like 30 seconds, anything to add here?
Well, I would say it's not the first time in our history, right?
Okay.
Look at how the Black Panthers were treated. Historically, this has actually been a good thing at some junctures, right? To make people wake up and say, okay, we want to fight for what's right. We want to, take back some of the power. So maybe this is what the Democrats and some of those on our side need in order to really get our stuff together. Because I feel like we had 4 years to get our stuff together while Biden was there. And this was all we had. This was the plan that we came up with. I think that we should, instead of being negative about it, turn it into a positive and really try to move forward and move upwards.
Well, sound advice. I think that's probably the only advice that we can take right now. And so we will take it and leave it right there. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
For taking the time to come and talk to us. I know that we're asking big questions, and these big questions don't really have nice, easy answers, but I appreciate you giving us something, because, as I say, something is not nothing.
Thank you so much.
Once again, our guest is Amy Owen, better known as Pineapple Lawyer. Be sure to follow her online at Pineapple Lawyer on all platforms. She's a civil rights attorney who's worked in major civil rights cases alongside Ben Crump. Has worked with a ton of athletes and actors and famous, important people. And she has come down from the mountains to hang with us today. So we can't thank you enough.
All my honor.
Yeah. Thank you. And be sure to follow us on all social media at Civic Cipher. Hit the website civiccipher.com to download this and any previous episodes. And until next week, y'all, peace.
Thanks.